Thanks for joining us here in the semifinals of our mid-season showdown. This is day 5 of our giant marathon that we've been having. I'm Arnie Wolf, joined by Young Kim for our semifinals. And we have two longtime players. They have been doing consistently well in this tournament, or marathon as well. You got Brandon Davis and Allan Martinez. You're going to see Brandon on the left, Allan's going to be on the right. And as for their teams, as you're going to see right now, as they load on in, Brandon has Armor Rouge, NDD Female, Torkoal, Ursaluna, Hisui Form, Zapdos Galar, and Cresselia, while Allan's carrying Iron Hands, Teal Mask Ogerpon, Golden Go, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Arcanine Hisui Form, and Roaring Moon.
Yeah, it looks very similar. These are very standard cores and standard team concepts, but they definitely have a different spin and a different concept to them. Especially with Brandon having Zapdos Galar and Cresselia as an additional Trick Room, and which makes it really hard for intimidating users to kind of come and threaten Armor, for example. You can't just lead Hisui and Arcanine, right? Like, as I've been a victim of this, leading Hisui and Arcanine into Zapdos has not been a very good experience.
No, I think if you've played it against Brandon, you always have to keep that in mind. I know in both of the matches that I played against him, I was like, I'm hesitant to bring out this Arcanine. Yeah. And one thing that's very interesting about Allan's team is that it is pretty Trick Room susceptible, with the exception of the Iron Hands. But you're fine if you're Brandon, knowing that Iron Hands is there, because you've got Torkoal and Ursaluna, which, as long as that Iron Hands has at least 1 point in investment in speed, your Ursaluna is definitely going to outspeed that as well. Exactly. And so you have pretty much as many options to go with. I don't think Psy Spam is necessarily the best play here, because you have the Roaring Moon and Golden Go. Yeah. So I think Brandon picked the right 4.
Yeah, and something to note is the Teal Ogerpon, which we don't see that often. We often see on Roaring Moon teams the Ogerpon Wellspring or different Follow Me entirely. And one instance of using Teal Ogerpon was actually Jamie Boyd's I believe in regionals and Toronto regionals.
I believe so, yeah. Although Jamie Boyd, I know Jamie Boyd's team very well. He's one with Articuno.
Yes.
Yes. But we're gonna see the lead, and Allan is leading with that Arcanine and Roaring Moon, while Brandon leads with the Galar, Zapdos, and Cresselia. So that Defiant Boost is going to activate thanks to the Intimidate from the Arcanine once that comes into play here. Interesting lead. Roaring Moon obviously putting some pressure on the Cresselia. However, Terrestrial not going to be that hard and to use your poison, so there's nothing really that Allan can do to touch that. And if you don't want that, there's a good chance you're going to take a knockoff and Flare Blitz combo. And not to mention, your Galar Zapdos is Choice Scarf, so you are going to be faster than potentially both of these Pokemon. We know the Roaring Moon isn't too fast. I believe it's definitely slower than mine, which mine was, I believe, 259 speed at level 50. So there's a good chance that Galar Zapdos, if it's max speed and Choice Scarf, could outspeed the Roaring Moon.
Yeah, and again, as I mentioned, the Zapdos lead is so crucial here. It puts on so much pressure against the Arcanine, and Zapdos is not actually that slow of a mon. I believe it outspent my Roaring Moon during our Swiss round match at a local, and I was punished heavily by it. I had a lot of concern over it. Zapdos puts on a lot of pressure, and it really allows Cresselia to have just a free Trick Room, and all Brandon needs to do is switch in or U-turn out, and suddenly you're just staring at a Torkoal with option or just Ursaluna that can just click Earthquake.
Absolutely. And Cresselia going to go for that Terra Poison. We saw the knockoff from Roaring Moon go first, then the Zapdos with that one-hit KO. So now we do know Roaring Moon is going to be faster than Zapdos.
Yeah.
Arcanine's still in play, but this Cresselia no longer has to worry about knockoff or any move from Arcanine. It's going to go for a Rock Slide. Decent pick here. Does a lot of damage.
Yes.
And
and the flinch.
Best case scenario.
Yes. This is exactly what you've been looking for. Though Zapdos gets priority here, Allan just launches all of Rock Slides and pretty much prevents the Trick Room from going up. And this is so important because the speed tiers between Allan and Brandon's Pokemon is, say, Allan will always be going first.
Yeah, there's one good thing here. Because Brandon did not switch out, you do have this Galar Zapdos on the field ready to just close combat one of the two.
Yeah.
This is I'm going to guess this is going to be Terra Fairy Arcanine.
This is likely the Terra Fairy Arcanine.
Smart.
In order to resist the damage coming from close combat from the Galarian Zapdos, this is absolutely wonderful. I think launching off Rock Slide as many times as you can to proc the flinch and get the chip off will allow Allan to kind of
still did 50%.
Yeah, and install the Trick Room.
But you still now have, I believe, Rock Slide plus Surging Strikes incoming here.
Yes.
And I think knowing Crerselia's bulk, it's bulky, but I don't think it's able to take a Surging Strike's bulky.
Yeah.
And there it is, that Surging Strike. So now if you're Brandon, you're like, oh, what do I do here?
There's a little bit of a...
That does way less than I thought.
Yes.
But it's still knockout.
But yeah, and that goes to show how bulky Cresselia is as a Pokemon. Yeah, I think Allan doing a great job of essentially stalling out the trick with a little bit of help from the Flame.
Yeah, that Rock Slide was really important.
Very crucial. Rock Slide.
Now, these last two are interesting because on one hand, obviously this Ursaluna is not wanting to take a close combat. However, with that in mind, a Heat Wave should pick up a KO on the Arcanine, and then it's going to come down to how much close combat does. I personally think close combat from Urshifu 1 hit KOs the Ursaluna, but if it's max attack, there's a chance that these two on Allan's side could go down, leaving it with a one-on-one, although both of Brandon's Pokemon will be in the red, so it would be very close. But I think it's really going to come down to how much does close combat do, and whether or not you hit a Rock Slide.
Yeah, and Brandon's definitely playing catch-up here. That early Terra from Brandon's end is kind of costing him a little bit. If he did have the Ursula's Terra as Ghost, he would have been able to resist that combat. But unfortunately, the leads on that Allan's Roaring Moon.
Surging Strike's coming out. That is, I think, a very solid play, despite it being in the sun. Getting rid of the Torkoal is really important. You can basically ensure that you knock out. And now with this Ursaluna, yeah, it's going to live, but you can now free to close combat for the KO. And I'm assuming we're going to see probably Headlong Rush. Yeah, and that's going to go on to the Urshifu slot. Definitely a lot more of a threat.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't do enough to KO, and likely the Urshifu and Arcanine are free to pretty much rain damage upon it as much as it wants.
Yeah, this is a pretty... Yeah, there's the forfeit. And it was... That flinch, it just shows you how important that is for Trick Room.
Yeah, and flinch, though, an unfortunate mechanic on Brandon's end, has really allowed Allan to kind of finish the first game without any issue. Yeah, and I think Brandon definitely had the right idea. It was just a string of misfortunate events that really disabled his strategy from properly. Yeah,
it was an unfortunate call there, or not call, but unfortunate move with that Rock Slide flinch. I mean, that's the same thing that happened earlier today with me. You know, when you get flinched with Rock Slide trying to reverse Trick Room in my case, or set up Trick Room in Brandon's case, it changes the entire game. And so I think if you're Brandon, you're thinking, okay, I gotta really reverse that. I think Zapdos did fine. I wouldn't mind. I think you can lead with it again, though. I feel like if you're gonna go, you can go the same leads, but it's a tough situation. I think the same four is correct, but at the same time, maybe go for Size Spam. You do have Wide Guard on your Armor Rouge, so you can get rid of that. And then, like I said, besides the Iron Hands, you have speed everything. The only thing would be that Roaring Moon, but there's a little threat because Indeedee's got Dazzling Gleam, so it can chip it enough. And if you Terra your Armor Rouge, you maybe will take it, but then you got Torkoal. So it's really just a matter of, do you account for another potential flinch and sacrifice your Zapdos Cresselia lead, or go back into that knowing that it was the right call, but you're risking that flinch potential.
And here comes a potential decision. Maybe looks like he's going back to his original four. I do think that Size Spam is not a bad idea here. Mainly because there's a lot of spread moves, but they can't really knock out the Size Spam. Notably, that Arcanine doesn't have Head Smash, which is likely needed for it to knock out the ball.
I think this is a pretty solid situation. I would probably, if I was Brandon, I would do the same thing and bring the same four, and then maybe next game switch to Size Spam just to change things up. But we are going to see identical leads.
The identical leads. Again, some different decisions might have to be taken here, especially that Arcanine putting a lot of pressure with Rock Slide, and the potential flinches that can come out are definitely risky on Brandon.
The question now I have for Allan is, which one do you Terra, and do you Terra turn 1? Because that could also be very important. Knowing that there is that potential, I think the close combat, honestly, for me, I think the close combat's better on Arcanine. Because, Roaring Moon is fine, but the best thing it can do is Breaking Swipe your Ursaluna, and at your Ursaluna Facade onto a Roaring Moon that's close to max attack, it'll leave it to around 4 HP from what I had faced. So I think that your best bet is to, even if it's Terra Fairy Arcanine, that's fine, close combat onto that slot, and then start going for either Lunar Blessing. You could potentially go for Skill Swap, but I don't I don't know. I feel like you're fine to just go for a Lunar Blessing, but I think regardless, the close combat on the Arcanine's the play.
Right. Even if the Terra Fairy happens, that just means that Allan is spending his Terra on the Arcanine, which
There it is. Yeah.
yeah, there it is. Which allows Allan to kind of bait out the close combat, but he doesn't do much to stop the. Again, this is assuming that Rock Slide actually hits him. So
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be knockoff Rock Slide again. I'm assuming. I don't see any reason not to. I mean, I'm not necessarily surprised the Roaring Moon didn't switch out yet because I think you saw how much Arcanine played a part in the last match that I would just lead the exact same thing, knock off, go for the Rock Slide. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see an exact copy except for the close combat going on to the Arcanine here, which does a lot of damage.
Yeah, though it's not effective. Again, this really shows the power of Defiance Zapdos and that lead. And that +1 damage. And and the Flare Blitz from your Arcanine? Oh,
not enough.
Not enough.
Not enough. That's really important. And very nice here for Brandon.
Very nice here, yes. Brandon gets a free Trick Room off essentially, and he's free to sack all these mons and start sweeping with scan. Blessing.
Yep.
He has a lot of things to do now. This is how it was intended to go without.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as we saw in game 1.
Okay, that's a very interesting play, and I do like that. Potentially, if Bredox skill swap onto the Arcanine, it's a tough one. On one hand, I think you could go for Lunar Blessing, but here at this point, I think Bredox just like, I'm not getting Cressalia's use right now.
Right.
Just intimidate both of, really mainly intimidate the Arcanine.
Right.
Especially if Torkoal's coming out in the back, you don't want to.
You don't want to take extra damage on the Torkoal. You want to be at full health when you're picking those around.
Yes. And we also saw in game 1 that Roaring Moon is faster, and the intimidate helps because that close
combat, and he survives that.
That close combat is going to connect with the Roaring Moon. Double knockout this turn.
The skill
for
swap
Brandon.
was so crucial here. Getting that Intimidator off lets the Zapdos live and lets the Zapdos get off that close combat. And remember, this Zapdos was -1 in defense.
Unbelievable. That is basically a neutral Flare Blitz then with the Intimidate and then the -1. Well. And the Cresselia still lives, which I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought that Flare Blitz was 100% going to target the Cresselia. Be like, you know what? I want Trick Room gone. I don't want them to reset. I can stall out, which is the strategy you want. But that actually now makes sense from seeing that Iron Hands come back out.
Right.
And I believe we're going to see Urshifu again. Yeah. So this is a really interesting position. Obviously, Cresselia is probably. I actually think either one here is necessarily in a good spot. I would probably I don't even know what the best bet is. Maybe just let both of them go down, so that way obviously you can bring out your 2 sweepers for the back, which are in very good shape right now. The only thing, like I said though, is that Iron Hands does threaten Ursaluna, but as long as this Ursaluna is minimum speed and this Iron has at least 1 point, then you're gonna outspeed.
And the Lunar Blessing, in order to preserve the Cresselia, which is very important, the nice switch in from Torkoal here is to prevent the Surging Strike's damage from going off too hard on either slot, really. And saving that Zapdos for later in the game when Trick Room happens to go off is really important. And as you can see, the Surging Strikes in Suns does virtually no damage.
That was surprising. I definitely expected a switch into that Ursaluna there. And now I think, honestly, you just go for Eruption and potentially. I actually think the switch into Zapdos isn't horrible here. Just kind of want to bait them out to hit the Cresselia and kind of let Torkoal do its thing. But this is really good position for Brandon. Obviously, this Torkoal, chances of it knocking out both of Allan's Pokemon are slim because Iron Hands is super bulky and Urshifu resists, but it doesn't really matter because 2 of those hits is going to knock out.
It chunks a lot.
Yeah, it does so much.
And the Iron Hands going into the Ursaluna. Oh, that's rough.
Great play.
That's absolutely rough for Allan again. And the Surging Strike chip off on the Torkoal is very important to reduce the eruption damage, but lest we forget that this Torkoal has Heat. And Heat Wave arguably might do more damage now. And Ursaluna gets a free switch in, allowing it to click Headlong Rush, Earthquake, Facade, whatever he wants, and pretty much over.
That's pretty much it. You Facade the Iron Hands, you want to make sure you get rid of it, go for the Heat Wave just to chip the Urshifu, and then at that point, you can only pick one of the 2, and if you've got one more turn of Trick Room, that's it. You just basically go for Lunar Blessing and another Heat Wave.
And the Heat Wave does hit both Urshifu and Iron Hands, and the burn! Oh!
Ursaluna's like, I don't want to be the only one burned on the field.
Oh!
Double burn!
It's a double burn!
Literally 3 of the 4 Pokemon on the field are burned.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, I don't think it mattered at the end of the day, but it's impressive. And you know what? This Ursaluna is going to live the close combat.
Yeah.
And it would have actually taken just enough to live, I believe, without the burn, but then it would have gone down to its own burn damage. So it is important to know for Game 3 how much that'll do. Knowing that, yeah, Urshifu can one-hit KO Ursaluna, or at least get it down to like 8 HP, which will allow you to at least, in that case, get one hit off and then you're good. Aqua Jet coming... Okay. Aqua Jet onto the opposing side. Why not?
Why not? Yeah. And again, this is the power of that Cresselia Zapdos.
Yeah.
Being able to prevent so many intimidates from coming off, and using that bulk to set up Trick Room is so powerful here.
Oh yeah.
Without that flinch, we definitely see what could have happened in Game 1.
Yeah.
Obviously, Allan was definitely lucky to have those multiple burns and a lot of those big damages going off, but that's the power of Trick Room. You're able to flip it on, you're able to flip these Pokemon on its head and take advantage of your bulk, your power, without any restrictions.
Yeah, this Trick Room is still one of the best modes, and I think one thing everyone's like, oh, Trick Room's gonna not be as good. I think every single regulation we've said, oh, Trick Room's not gonna be as good, Trick Room's not gonna be as good, and every single regulation we see in the top 4 and potentially top 2 of the of a mid-season or regional, because it always finds a way to come back. Hard Trick Room always finds a way to come back, and I think honestly this is a very interesting one. I would go for the same leads here.
Oh, the mix-up, perhaps.
You know, I think Zapdos and Cresselia is good, but the question is then, do you go Armor and Indeedee? I think it's a solid play if you do. I actually think what's interesting though is with Allan, you know the 4 he's bringing in. There's no way he wants to bring out Teal Mask, Ogerpon, or Golden Gold
at all.
So you know the 4,
right?
And so you can prep for that, and knowing that 2 of them are weak to Sight or Expanding Force. So is Arcanine. Like, it's not weak to it, but
it'll take a lot of damage.
Yeah, you can one-shot it with a Hellbang Hand Expanding Force. So like, there's so many different options here that just going for the same leads, and then even if you bring in Sight Spam, like as long as you get rid of the Roaring Moon, then that's it.
Then you can just start clicking Expanding Force without any problem.
Exactly. The thing now. We've said it a bunch of times. Will this Arcanine Rock Slide and flinch? That is the key. And the question is, of course, is Allan going to even go for the Rock Slide? Last time we saw Flare Blitz, but that didn't quite work out. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see the exact same thing. But again, I actually think right now the best bet is to Close Combat Roaring Moon and then go for the Trick Room, because at that point, you know, once you get rid of the Roaring Moon, Expanding Force is free.
What's going to stop you from clicking Helping Hand Expanding Force? Helping Hand Expanding Force.
Bingo.
Right.
So that's what I think I would do, is just go for the Close Combat onto the Roaring Moon, even if it tears to Poison, because if it does, it's now weak to Expanding Force. So, yeah.
And there's a lot of mind games and mix-ups happening between Allan and Brandon. It is Game 3, as we all expect. And it's deciding whether they're going to go for the same play or completely mixing it up to catch you off guard.
Yeah, I think, honestly, Brandon's got a really safe play. And yeah, the Terra Fairy is the obvious play.
Right.
But I think the Terra Poison would have been better, just specifically so your Roaring Moon lives a little bit. But even then, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better.
Right.
I would have just probably not Terra at all. But yeah, you could keep your Arcanine getting one-hit KO by Close Combat. But I personally think Close Combat on the Roaring Moon is a better play. And then hope for the best with the flinches.
Right.
But then you have Wide Card in the back too if you need. So there's that knockoff.
And then the knockoff comes out.
And I believe this is going to be... Oh, it's Close Combat.
Into the Fairy Arcanine.
It's not bad.
It's not bad. Get some shit. You're able to land your... Hopefully, Allan has clicked Rock Slide. And he does click his Rock Slide.
So
and this allows for a lot of damage. And another flinch!
Rock Slide!
Wherever there's a Rock Slide, there is a way.
Wow.
Rock Slide giveth and Rock Slide taketh away.
This is insane. Rock Slide is...
Once again, Brandon is on...
it's the stream curse. It's the stream curse. The good news is that Cresselia is in a spot where, as long as it doesn't get flinched again, knock on wood.
Knock on wood, indeed.
It's just, you're fine, because there's really nothing that Roaring Moon can do to one-hit KO it.
Exactly.
And you are free to swap out your...
And the Tailwind. Ooh. This is going to be a very interesting play.
That's smart, in case you don't...
And the Rock Slide comes first.
Betting all on a Rock Slide flinch, essentially.
This is very important for Allan to be able to flinch his Cresselia again.
it. That's what we
The
did.
rock slide. The rock slide.
Oh my god.
The rock
Now I would feel like a little like just I don't know how I would feel. That's 3 rock slide flinches, has stopped 3 trick rooms. That was the important one. And now the unfortunate part. Okay, the good news is you're now just dealing with a knockoff. And yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's the
and
play. Wide guard
Right.
knockoff and
Wide guard
hope
knockoff.
that you don't.
You have to pray that
Yeah.
this knockoff doesn't KO the armor.
It's gonna. It's so close.
It was so close.
Man, this is not the play. Yeah, there was the rock slide. So
Right,
trick
there's
room's coming up. Oh man, I feel bad for Brandon because I mean we've all been there where
Yeah.
flinches are super
Right.
crucial, but 3 times, and those are the most crucial 3. Now here's the thing though. This Armor Rouge does not have protect.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna go ahead and switch on out to
The
the NDD, and then
Oh, the expanding force.
okay, why not? I think you're gonna lose Roaring Moon though. You're gonna lose to Roaring Moon. Your Armor Rouge is just gonna get knocked off or Breaking Swipe, and that's just gonna do it. And unfortunately, Cresselia and NDD are not heavy hitters, so it's one of those things where I would probably switch the Armor Rouge out into the NDD and then go for a Lunar Blessing to take whatever hits. Because Cresselia is at a decent amount of HP,
Right.
so I think you could probably take one more and then double target the Roaring Moon. But
Right.
we're gonna see Arcanine switch out. That's probably
Arcanine
fine.
switch. Yeah, that's perfect.
If you're Brandon, you're just hope. And Iron Hands going in it's fine, but at the same time, it's not great.
Yeah.
The Expanding Force does connect with the Iron Hands right away, which does a decent amount. But
chunk.
here's the thing, and this Lunar Blessing is really important, but I still think the knockoff's going to KO. But Iron Hands is faster than Armor Rouge under this Trick Room because Allan had used Tailwind.
Right.
But I don't think it's
knockoff.
Yeah.
Coming off for the KO. And that those rock slides just really just doing a number to Brandon's game. It really is unfortunate that Brandon has to be dealing with a lot of flinches here. But on the other hand, for Allan, he's able to stall out the Trick Room tempo for so long that he is already in the lead, even with the Trick Room setup. And the game is already in his favor without any issue.
Yeah, I think right now at this point you double target on the Iron Hands. It's tough when your only moves that you can hit with are Dazzling Gleam and Ice Beam. That doesn't do a ton. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say it's necessarily overs because I believe this NDD does have Rocky Helmet. So if you can get rid of everything here, and thanks to the 4x weakness on Roaring Moon, there's a shot. I mean, it's still gonna do a really.
There's a good chunk on the board.
Oof, that does a decent amount, but it's not.
But
great.
does this Ice Beam? Oh, it doesn't KO.
And that's really what you needed was to get rid of the Iron Hands.
And the Drain Punch on the NDD. Gonna get a little bit of health back, but obviously losing it thanks to the Rocky Helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Allan's doing a great job of essentially reducing the momentum from Brandon's end. And the knockoff coming on to the NDD for the knockout.
And I think that means Allan Martinez is gonna pick up the win here.
Yeah, and
And it's just this Cresselia versus the world.
yeah. And Allan, even taking into consideration the threat of Defiant Zapdos, still goes for this same lead for the first 3 games without any problems. And this, it's so unfortunate, and it barely does any damage. And Drain Punch going to completely whittle down the Cresselia until it fades.
It's just, you know, what it was those flinches. I mean, that was the crucial part, and there was 3 of them. The odds of that are 3 and 10 times 3 and 10 times 3 and 10.
Right.
But I think the real kind of key there after the flinches was the fact that Brandon, I'm disappointed we didn't see that close combat onto the Roaring Moon, because I was thinking if you get rid of the Roaring Moon,
Right.
and you get flinched, your Zapdos is now the fastest thing on the field.
Right.
So you wouldn't have to necessarily worry about the Trick Room coming out that turn, because it's like, you know what, it's fine. Zapdos is fast now, and I'm fine. And so like, you want to bring out your Urshifu, fine. If you want to bring out your Iron Hands, fine. I can close combat.
Right.
So I feel like that was kind of the move that I was kind of hoping to see. But regardless, it was 2 just very good players in a really entertaining at the least.
It was very entertaining at the least. And we talk about how tearing the Roaring Moon could have given him an edge by taking the close combat well, but that leaves him open for another side spam opportunity. Yeah. Right. So
I think the best bet was to let you sacrifice. Like, I would have just targeted the Roaring Moon, hope that they sacrificed it, and then the Terra on the Arcanine is very important because you could still get those rock slides off. But if that close combat got rid of the Roaring Moon, having Zapdos as the fastest Pokemon on the field was really important
Right.
to kind of account for those rock slides
Right.
flinching. And unfortunately, we saw what happened when you don't connect to close combats. Yeah.
Right. And that's so unfortunate because Rock Slide, again, though very highly rewarding, it can be highly risky as well with those misses, right?
Yeah.
And Allan taking the gamble in a seemingly unfavorable matchup with those leads
Yeah.
takes it in a 2-1 victory.
Yeah.
I think it was very. These are great showings from both players, barring the unfortunate luck on both ends, of course. But yeah.
Well, Allan is going to be facing either Riley or Gio, whoever won that match,
Yes.
in Riley.
Riley,
So we're
yes.
going to see the #1 CP holder right now face Allan Martinez. And one of them is going to become our mid-season showdown champion, the second mid-season showdown champion of our marathon.
Right.
And we're going to get into that as soon as they set up. There's going to be very soon, so stick around for our